The crystal water pitcher exploded against the wall 6 inches from the nurse's head, shattering into 1,000 glittering pieces that rained down on the marble floor. "I said leave!" Elena Whitmore's voice tore through the penthouse like a blade, her knuckles white around the wheelchair's armrests. Her eyes burning with something far worse than anger, the rage of a woman who had nothing left to lose. The nurse fled, sobbing, the 17th caregiver to run out those doors in 11 days. Elena hadn't eaten in 4. She hadn't slept in 3. And she had just made a vow that she would die alone in this glass tower before she let one more stranger pity her. But what she didn't know, what nobody could have known, was that the next person to walk through that door wouldn't be a nurse or a doctor or another assistant sent by her terrified board of directors. It would be a quiet man with calloused hands holding a toolbox, and a 5-year-old girl holding a juice box. And that little girl was about to do what no billion-dollar specialist on Earth had been able to do. Before we begin, friends, drop a comment below and tell me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel across this beautiful country of ours. And if stories about second chances, broken people, and the quiet kind of love that saves a life mean something to you, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. The elevator climbed 62 floors in silence, and Caleb Turner used every one of them to talk himself out of bringing his daughter to work. "Sweetheart," he said, crouching down so he was eye level with the small blonde head leaning against his leg. "You remember the rules?" Sophie nodded solemnly, the way only a 5-year-old can, like she was being sworn in as President of the United States. "Stay close. Don't touch anything shiny. Don't talk to anybody unless they talk to me first. That's my girl. And if a lady is sad, I can give her my granola bar." Caleb blinked. That's a new rule." "I made it up," Sophie said proudly. "On the elevator." He laughed, a tired, soft laugh, the kind that lived in the back of his throat these days, and only came out for her. "Okay, baby. But let's keep that one in our pocket for now. The lady who lives here doesn't really like visitors." "Then why does she live where people visit?" He didn't have an answer for that. He never did for any of Sophie's questions. They were all small and impossible at the same time. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open onto a private foyer, the size of his entire apartment, all white marble and glass, and the kind of silence that money buys. A woman in a charcoal suit was waiting for them, clipboard pressed against her chest like a shield. "You're the maintenance tech?" she asked, eyes flicking down to Sophie. "Nobody told me you were bringing a child." "My sitter canceled this morning," Caleb said evenly. "Building manager said it was a 15-minute job. Ventilation issue in the master bedroom. I'll be in and out before anyone notices she's here, I promise." The woman, her badge read Evelyn Executive Assistant, exhaled like she was deflating. "Mr. Turner, I'm going to be honest with you because I respect your time. Whatever the building manager told you, this is not a 15-minute job. This is the Whitmore residence. Are you familiar with that name?" "I know who Elena Whitmore is, ma'am. Everybody does." "Then you know about the accident." "6 months ago, the car. I read about it. What you didn't read about," Evelyn said, her voice dropping, "is what happened after. Ms. Whitmore came home from the hospital 11 weeks ago. Since then, this penthouse has been through 14 private nurses, 3 physical therapists, 2 live-in aides, and a chef from a 2-star restaurant in Manhattan who lasted exactly 40 minutes. Caleb adjusted his grip on the toolbox. "Ma'am, I'm not here to take care of her. I'm here to fix a vent. The vent is in her bedroom." "Okay, she is in her bedroom." "Right. She has not allowed anyone into that bedroom in 4 days. The last person who tried to bring her food had a pitcher thrown at her head this morning. There is glass on the floor. We haven't been able to clean it up because we can't get past the door." Caleb looked down at his daughter. Sophie was studying a small, abstract sculpture on a side table with the intense focus of a museum curator. "Sophie," he said quietly. "Honey, come here a sec." She came. He squatted down again. "Baby, I need you to sit right here on this fancy couch and not move, like a statue." Can you be a statue for 10 minutes? I'll set my phone timer. When it dings, I'm done. Then we go get pancakes. Pancakes with the strawberries? Pancakes with the strawberries. Deal. He kissed the top of her head and stood up. Evelyn was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read, something halfway between sympathy and warning. Mr. Turner, I'm not going to pretend this is normal. I'm just going to ask you to do your job as quickly as you can, not engage with her if she speaks to you, and leave. Yes, ma'am. And if she throws something at you, duck. Got it. I was going to say, don't take it personally. But yes, also, duck. The bedroom door was massive solid walnut 12 feet tall, with brushed nickel hardware that probably cost more than Caleb's truck. He knocked twice. There was no answer. He knocked again. I told you to leave. The voice on the other side was hoarse, ragged. The voice of someone who had been screaming or crying or both for a very long time. It didn't sound like a billionaire CEO. It sounded like a woman at the absolute end of a very long rope. Ma'am, Caleb called through the door. I'm not a nurse. I'm the building's maintenance tech. There's a problem with the vent in your bedroom. I just need to come in, take a look, and I'll be gone in 15 minutes. I won't touch anything else. I won't speak to you. I won't ask if you need anything. You'll barely know I'm here. A long silence. Are you alone? He hesitated. He thought about lying. He thought about how much easier lying would be. My 5-year-old is in the foyer, he said. Her sitter canceled. She's not coming in here. She doesn't even know you exist. Another silence. Longer this time. Fine. Get it done. Don't speak. He pushed open the door. The first thing he noticed was the light. The blackout curtains were drawn so tight that the room felt like a vault lit only by a single bedside lamp turned to its lowest setting. The second thing he noticed was the broken glass, a wide spray of it across the floor glittering in the lamplight, with a wet stain on the wall, above where the pitcher had hit. The third thing he noticed was her. Elena Whitmore was sitting in a wheelchair by the window, half turned away from him, her dark hair unwashed and pulled back in a brutal knot. She wore a silk robe that had once been very expensive and now hung on her like it belonged to someone else. He couldn't see her face. He didn't try. The vent's in the ceiling above the bed, he said, keeping his voice flat and professional. I'm going to put the ladder there. I'll be 10 minutes. She didn't respond. He worked. He didn't look at her. He climbed the ladder, pulled the vent cover, found the loose damper tightened, the screws, replaced the filter, snapped the cover back on. Routine. Easy. The kind of work he could do with his eyes closed, which was good because he didn't want to look anywhere in this room. 8 minutes in, he heard her breathe. It wasn't a sigh. It wasn't a sob. It was a small, sharp inhale, the sound a person makes when they're holding something in so hard, their body finally rebels. He didn't turn his head. He kept working. 9 minutes in, he heard her speak. Just one word. So soft, he almost missed it. Why? He paused, screwdriver in hand. He looked at the vent cover, not at her. Why what, ma'am? Why are you not afraid of me? He thought about it. He could have said any number of things. He could have said, I am a little. He could have said, because I don't care who you are. He could have said, because I have a job to do. Instead, what came out was, ma'am, I lost my wife 3 years ago. After that, there's not a whole lot left in this world that scares me. The silence that followed was so complete, he could hear the hum of the building's HVAC system, 3 floors below. He climbed down the ladder, folded it, picked up his toolbox, and walked toward the door without looking back. Wait. He stopped. He didn't turn. What's your name? Caleb Turner, ma'am. Get out, Caleb Turner. Yes, ma'am. He closed the door behind him. He was halfway across the foyer, already digging in his pocket for his keys, when he realized the couch was empty. Sophie was gone. His stomach dropped through 62 floors. Sophie? His voice came out tight. Sophie. Baby, where are you?" Evelyn looked up from her clipboard, frowning. "She was right there 2 minutes ago. That's when they heard it. A small voice, coming from down the hallway, coming from a room that absolutely no 5-year-old should be in. "You should eat. It helps when you're sad." Caleb's blood turned to ice water. He dropped the toolbox. He ran. He hit the bedroom door at full speed, threw it open, and froze. Sophie was standing in the middle of the room. In her hands, she held the silver breakfast tray that had been sitting untouched on the hallway sideboard. A plate of toast, a small bowl of fruit, a cup of tea, long gone cold. She was holding it out toward Elena Whitmore with both hands, her little arms shaking under the weight, her face perfectly serious. Elena had turned all the way around in her wheelchair now. For the first time, Caleb saw her face. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe 40, maybe 42, and beautiful in the wrecked, exhausted way of someone who had been beautiful her whole life and was now too tired to remember it. Her eyes were red. Her cheeks were wet. And she was staring at his daughter like Sophie was a creature from another planet. "Sophie," Caleb said quietly. "Honey, come here. Now." "Daddy, she's hungry." "Sophie, this isn't our house. We don't—" "She's hungry, Daddy. Look at her. She's hungry, and she's sad, and nobody's helping her." He opened his mouth. He closed it. He didn't know what to say. Elena spoke first. Her voice was so different from before that Caleb almost didn't recognize it. It was small. It was raw. It was a voice he hadn't heard from a grown woman in a very long time, and it made something in his chest twist hard. "How old are you, sweetheart?" 5.5. 5.5. "My birthday's in October. I'm going to have a unicorn cake." "Are you?" "My daddy doesn't know how to make a unicorn cake, but he's going to learn from a video on the phone. He learns lots of things from videos. He learned how to braid my hair." Elena's face did something then, a tiny broken thing, a thing that wasn't quite a smile, and wasn't quite a sob. Caleb saw a single tear slide down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. He didn't think she even knew it was there. "Sophie," Caleb said again, softer. "Baby, we have to go." "But she didn't eat yet." "Sweetheart. It helps when you're sad, Daddy. You said, remember? When Mommy was in heaven, Grandma made me eat the soup and you said it helps." He couldn't breathe. He could not breathe. He stood in that doorway, and he watched his 5-year-old daughter hold a tray of cold toast out to the most powerful woman in the city. And he watched that woman's whole carefully constructed wall crack down the middle. And he understood suddenly and completely that there was nothing he could do here that would be the right thing except stand still and let it happen. Elena reached out a hand. It was shaking. He noticed for the first time the brace running down her left arm, the way her fingers didn't quite work right. She picked up a single piece of toast. She lifted it to her mouth. She took a bite. She chewed. She swallowed. And then she put the toast down, covered her face with both hands, and she cried. Not the angry, jagged crying of the morning. Not the rage of a woman throwing pitchers at strangers. But the deep, bone-quiet crying of someone who has been holding their breath for 6 months, and just remembered they were allowed to exhale. Sophie set the tray down very carefully on the bed. Then she walked over to the wheelchair, and she didn't ask permission, and she didn't hesitate, and she put her small arms around Elena Whitmore's shoulders, and she held her. "It's okay," Sophie whispered. "It's okay to be sad. My daddy says it's okay." Elena cried harder. Caleb stood in the doorway, and his vision blurred, and he didn't move. He didn't reach for his daughter. He didn't apologize. He didn't try to fix the moment, or smooth it over, or get them out of there. He just stayed. He stayed until Elena's shoulders stopped shaking. He stayed until Sophie pulled back and looked Elena very seriously in the face and said, "You should drink some water too. Water is important." He stayed until Elena let out a sound that was half a laugh and half a sob, and reached for the cup with her shaking hand. Evelyn appeared in the doorway behind him. He felt her there. He didn't turn. "Mr. Turner," she whispered. I don't know what just happened." "I don't either, ma'am. She hasn't eaten in 4 days. I know. She hasn't let anyone touch her in 11 weeks. I know. Mr. Turner, I'm going to take my daughter home now, he said quietly. I'm going to take her for pancakes. I'm sorry she came in here. It won't happen again. Mr. Turner, wait. But he was already moving. He stepped into the room, and Elena looked up at him, and her eyes, those red, exhausted, broken eyes, locked onto his and held him there for a long second. Caleb Turner, she said. Yes, ma'am. Your daughter. I know. I'm so sorry. I'll bring her back. He stopped. He blinked. Ma'am. Elena Whitmore, billionaire, CEO. The woman who had thrown a pitcher at a nurse's head 4 hours ago looked at him with tears still drying on her face and said in the smallest voice he had ever heard from a powerful person, Please, bring her back tomorrow. He looked at Sophie. Sophie looked at him. She had a piece of toast in her hand now. She was eating it. Daddy, she said with her mouth full. I told you she was hungry. Caleb Turner didn't answer Elena. He couldn't. His throat had closed up entirely. He just nodded once. Slow picked up his daughter, settled her on his hip, the way he had 1,000 times before, and walked out of that bedroom with the strangest feeling he had ever had in his life. The feeling that something had just started. The feeling that he had walked into that penthouse to fix a vent, and he was walking out of it carrying something much, much heavier. In the elevator, Sophie laid her head on his shoulder and said sleepily, Daddy, the lady was nice. Was she, baby? She was just hiding. He didn't answer. He couldn't. He stared at the numbers ticking down 62, 61, 60, and he held his daughter, and he thought about a woman in a wheelchair who had cried into a child's arms, and he thought about his wife, 3 years gone, and the way she used to say, Caleb, you've got to stop trying to do this alone, and he thought about how he hadn't stopped. Not really, not for one single day since they put her in the ground. The elevator hit the lobby. The doors opened. Sophie was already asleep on his shoulder. He stepped out into the morning. He had no idea as he walked into the bright Manhattan sunlight with his sleeping daughter and his toolbox that he would be back in that penthouse in less than 24 hours. He had no idea that the woman upstairs had just made a phone call to her assistant. Her hands still shaking. Her voice still wet and said 3 words she hadn't said to anyone since the accident. Don't lose him. Caleb didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table of his small 2-bedroom in Astoria, long after Sophie had gone down a cold cup of coffee in front of him, and he stared at the wall like it owed him an answer. The toolbox sat by the door where he'd dropped it. His phone sat face down on the table because he'd already looked at it 11 times. And 11 times there had been a missed call from a number he didn't recognize and a voicemail he hadn't listened to. He listened to it at 2 in the morning. Mr. Turner, this is Evelyn Park. I'm Ms. Whitmore's executive assistant. I know it's late. I wouldn't be calling if it weren't important. Ms. Whitmore would like to retain your services on a more regular basis. I understand this is unusual. I understand you have your own work, your own life, your own daughter. I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'm asking for a meeting tomorrow morning at 9. Please, just a meeting. Please call me back. He played it twice. Then a third time. Then he set the phone down, put his face in his hands, and let out a long, slow breath that came from somewhere south of his ribs. He didn't call back. He set his alarm for 6:30, went to Sophie's room, stood in her doorway, watching her sleep with her stuffed rabbit clutched against her chin, and whispered, "What did you do, baby? What did you go and do?" Boig. At 9 the next morning, he was standing outside the building on Park Avenue, with Sophie's hand in his, and absolutely no plan in his head. He hadn't called Evelyn back, he just showed up. He told himself he was showing up to politely decline. He told himself a man like him didn't take charity from a woman like her, that whatever had happened in that bedroom yesterday had been a moment, just a moment, and moment's end. He told himself a lot of things on the subway ride over, and not a single one of them was the real reason he was standing on that sidewalk now. The real reason was tugging on his hand. "Daddy, are we going up to see the sad lady?" Sophie, listen to me. We're going up to talk to a different lady. The one with the clipboard, just for a minute. Then we're leaving. Okay. Why? Because... He stopped. He didn't know why. Because adults have to talk about adult things sometimes. Is the sad lady not there? She's there, baby. We're just not going to bother her. Sophie considered this, swinging on his arm. Daddy, I wasn't bothering her yesterday. I was helping her. I know you were, sweetheart. So why is it bothering today and not bothering yesterday? He didn't have an answer. He never did. Evelyn met them in the foyer with 2 cups of coffee and a juice box. She had been waiting. Mr. Turner, thank you for coming. I didn't say I was coming. You're here. I'm here to tell you no in person. I figured I owed her that much. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Then she handed Sophie the juice box, knelt down, and said gently, Sweetheart, would you like to look at the koi fish? There's a tank in the next room with 7 fish. They have names. The orange one is named Gerald. Gerald? Gerald. That's a silly name for a fish. I think so too. Sophie went. Evelyn stood. She turned to Caleb, and the polished assistant from yesterday was gone. What was standing in front of him now was just a tired woman in her 50s who had worked too many hours for too many years for a person she clearly cared about more than she should have. Mr. Turner, can I be honest with you? I'd appreciate it. I have worked for Elena Whitmore for 19 years. I have seen her negotiate hostile takeovers in 3 languages. I have seen her fire her own brother on Christmas Eve. I have seen her bury her father and walk into a board meeting 40 minutes later and close a $400 million deal without one wrinkle in her suit. I have never seen her do what she did yesterday. Ma'am, she ate, Mr. Turner. She ate 3 pieces of toast. She drank the tea. She had soup at lunch. She had soup again at dinner. Last night she let the night nurse into the room to help her into bed for the first time in 9 days. She slept 6 hours. The doctor came this morning and she let him take her vitals without throwing anything at him. Caleb stared at the floor. And the first thing she said when she woke up was, "Are they coming back?" Ma'am, with respect, I'm a maintenance technician. I'm not. I don't know what she thinks I can give her, but I can't be what she needs. She needs doctors. She needs therapists. She's had all of those, Mr. Turner. She's had the best of all of those. She's burned through $12 million of those in 6 months, and she has gotten worse, not better. Then I'm sorry, but me bringing my 5-year-old daughter into a billionaire's bedroom every day is not a treatment plan. It's not normal. It's not safe. For her. For Sophie. I don't know what your boss is offering, but the answer is no. Evelyn was quiet for a long second. Then she said, She's not offering you anything yet, Mr. Turner. She told me to tell you that. She said, and I'm quoting, "Don't try to buy him. He'll walk." He blinked. She just wants to talk to you, for 10 minutes. She said if after 10 minutes you still want to walk away, she'll pay you for your time, and she'll never contact you again. She gave me her word. And what does her word mean? Evelyn looked him dead in the eye. In 19 years, I have never seen her break it. He stood there in that marble foyer for what felt like a year. He could see Sophie through the doorway, kneeling in front of a glass tank, talking to a fish. 10 minutes, he said. She was not in the wheelchair this time. She was in a leather armchair by the window, and Caleb realized as he walked in that someone had transferred her there. There was a folded transfer board leaning against the wall, the kind he had seen in his uncle's nursing home years ago. The blackout curtains were open. Pale gray morning light filled the bedroom. The broken glass was gone. The room smelled faintly like coffee. Elena Whitmore looked like a different person. Her hair was washed. Her face was clean. She wore a soft cashmere sweater and loose trousers, and a blanket across her lap. She still looked exhausted. She still looked like a woman who had been to hell. But she was present in a way she hadn't been yesterday. She was a person sitting in a chair, not a wound in a bathrobe. Mr. Turner? Ma'am? Sit down, please. He sat in the chair across from her. He didn't know what to do with his hands. He folded them in his lap, then unfolded them, then put them on his knees. "Where's your daughter?" "With Evelyn. There's a fish." "Gerald." "You know about Gerald." A small, tired smile touched the corner of her mouth. "I named him." "You named your fish Gerald." "I named all my fish after people I've fired." He didn't mean to laugh. It came out before he could stop it, short, surprised, real. She heard it. Her eyes flicked up to his face, and for 1 second he saw something there that he was almost certain hadn't been on her face in a long time. "Mr. Turner, I'm going to say some things to you, and I'd like you to let me finish before you respond. Is that fair?" "Yes, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am, please. My name is Elena." "Yes, ma'am?" "Yes." She took a breath. He watched her gather herself. He watched her become for a moment the woman who had run a Fortune 500 company, the spine of her straightening, the hands of hers folding precisely on top of the blanket. 6 months ago, I was in a car accident on the West Side Highway. The driver of the other vehicle was a 23-year-old man who had been drinking. He walked away with a broken wrist. I did not. I have what's called an incomplete spinal injury at the T6 vertebra. I have no function below my hips. I have partial function in my left hand. The doctors tell me there is a window of recovery with intensive therapy that will close in approximately 4 months. After that, what I have is what I have. She said all of this in the calm, even voice of a woman reading a stock report. In the 11 weeks I have been home from the hospital, I have made my recovery impossible. I have driven away every person who has tried to help me. I have refused to do my exercises. I have refused to eat. I have refused on multiple occasions to take my medication. I am by any reasonable medical definition killing myself. Slowly, on purpose. Caleb didn't move. "Yesterday morning your daughter walked into this room with a piece of toast and asked me to eat it, and I did, and I do not know why. I have spent 15 hours trying to understand why, and I do not have an answer. The closest I have come is this. She did not look at me like I was broken. She did not look at me like I was rich. She did not look at me like I was anything but a sad person who needed breakfast. And for the first time in 6 months, I was able to be that. Just that. Just a sad person who needed breakfast." Her voice cracked very slightly on the last word. She didn't stop. "My doctors tell me I have at the outside 4 months to begin meaningful rehabilitation, or my window closes. I have wasted 3 of those months. I have 1. And the thing that finally got me to take a bite of food was a 5-year-old child. Elena, let me finish." He swallowed. He nodded. "I am not asking you to be my nurse. I have nurses. I am not asking you to be my therapist. I have a therapist coming this afternoon. The first one I have allowed back in this apartment in 2 months. I am not asking your daughter to be my medicine. I would never ask a child to carry that. What I am asking, and please understand how difficult it is for me to ask anyone for anything, is whether you would be willing to come and do your work here. In this building. For the next 4 months. I own this building, Mr. Turner. There are 78 units. There is always work. I have spoken to your supervisor. He is, to put it gently, thrilled at the idea of a long-term contract. Your pay would be tripled. Your hours would be flexible. You could bring your daughter when you needed to. There is a daycare on the 4th floor, fully accredited, fully vetted, that I would cover for the duration." He opened his mouth. "I'm not finished." He closed it. "In return, I am asking only this. When you are in the building, you stop by this apartment once a day. You don't have to come in, you don't have to speak to me, you knock on the door. If I say go away, you go away, and that counts. If I say come in, you come in and you sit and you say nothing, and you leave when you want to leave. That is it. That is the entire arrangement. You are not my caregiver. You are not my friend. You are not my employee in any meaningful sense. You are a man who knocks on a door." She looked at him then, and her eyes were very bright. "I am asking you to be a knock on a door, Mr. Turner, because for some reason I do not understand. I think I might answer it for you." He sat there in that quiet bedroom, with the gray light falling across the floor. And he didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, he said, "Why me?" "Because you didn't try to fix me yesterday." "I didn't know how." "Exactly." "That's not Elena, that's not a qualification. That's a confession. Mr. Turner, every person in my life who has tried to fix me has been the most qualified person in their field. Surgeons, specialists. The head of physical therapy at the Mayo Clinic flew here in February. He lasted 48 hours. The only person who has gotten me to do anything in 6 months is a child who didn't know what she was supposed to be afraid of. I'm not looking for qualifications anymore. I'm looking for a person who walks into a room and doesn't change because of who I am." He thought about that. "I have to think about it." "Of course." "And I have to talk to my daughter." "Of course." "And if at any point this stops being good for her, for Sophie, I'm gone. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the contract. I don't care if I'm in the middle of a sentence. She is my whole life. She is the reason I get up. If she gets confused or scared or attached in a way I can't manage, I'm out the door and I don't look back. Are we clear on that? Crystal. And one more thing." "Yes." He met her eyes. "Don't you ever throw something at her." Something passed across Elena Whitmore's face then. Shame, mostly. He saw it land. He saw her absorb it. "I will not," she said quietly. "I give you my word." He nodded once. He stood up. "I'll have an answer for you by tomorrow morning." "Thank you." He was at the door when she said his name again. "Caleb?" He turned. "What you said yesterday about your wife." He waited. "I didn't ask, and I'm not asking. But I want you to know that I heard it, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. It was the first true thing anyone has said to me in this room since I came home." He looked at the carpet for a long moment. Then he looked back at her. "Her name was Marie," he said. "She was a third-grade teacher. She had brown eyes and a laugh like a kid. She died of a stroke in our kitchen on a Tuesday morning while I was at work. Sophie was 2. She doesn't really remember her. I tell her stories, but they're my stories, not hers. That's the part I don't know how to fix." Elena's hand had come up to cover her mouth. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Yeah, me too." He left the room. Bad. In the foyer, Sophie was sitting cross-legged in front of the koi tank, telling the orange fish a long, complicated story about a princess who lived in a castle made of mashed potatoes. Evelyn was watching her with an expression of helpless tenderness that Caleb recognized because he had worn it himself for 5.5 years. "Sophie, time to go, baby." "Daddy Gerald is bored. He wants me to come back." Caleb crouched down. He took both of his daughter's small hands in his own. He looked at her very seriously. "Soph, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to think about it before you answer. Okay?" "Okay." "The lady upstairs, the sad lady. She's asked if Daddy can come work in this building for a long time, a few months. And if you wanted to, you could come too sometimes. There would be a place for you to play with other kids, and sometimes you could come up and visit the sad lady if she was having a good day. But only if you wanted to, and only if it wasn't too much. Do you understand?" Sophie thought about it. Her brow furrowed in that specific way it did when she was being very, very serious. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Is the sad lady going to get less sad?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. A little. We don't know yet." "Can we help her get less sad?" He felt something rise in his throat. He swallowed it down. "Maybe a little, baby. But we can't fix her. Nobody can fix anybody else. Do you understand that? Mommy got fixed." "What?" "Mommy got fixed. She's in heaven. She's all better now." He couldn't speak. "So if we can't fix the lady on earth, maybe we can just be her friend until she's less sad. Like Grandma was my friend when I was sad about Mommy." He pulled his daughter into his chest and held her. He held her for a long time. Evelyn looked away. "Yeah, baby," he said into her hair. "Yeah. We can be her friend until she's less sad." "Okay, Daddy. Okay." He stood up. He picked her up. He looked at Evelyn over Sophie's head and he said, "Tell her yes." Evelyn's eyes filled. She nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak. He walked to the elevator. Sophie laid her head on his shoulder. "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart." "I think I'd like to be Gerald's friend too. I think Gerald would like that very much." The elevator doors closed, and 62 floors above them, in a quiet bedroom, flooded with gray morning light, a woman who had been a fortress for 6 months and a stranger to herself for far longer than that, picked up the phone with a hand that still didn't quite work right, called her physical therapist, and said in a voice she barely recognized as her own, "I'm ready to start. Today if you can." The first week was the hardest. Caleb had told himself on the subway ride home that night that he could do this, that he could walk into that building every morning, fix what needed fixing, knock once on a door, and walk out without leaving any pieces of himself behind. He had told himself he was a professional. He had told himself he had built walls higher than this in the years since Marie. He had told himself a lot of things. He was wrong about most of them. Monday morning, he stood outside the penthouse door at 10 o'clock sharp, his work belt around his waist, his hair still damp from the shower, and he raised his hand to knock and found that he couldn't do it. He stood there for a full minute, maybe 2. He knocked. "Come in." Her voice was steady, different. He pushed the door open. Elena was at a small writing desk near the window, at it, not in bed, not in the wheelchair tucked off in a corner, pretending to be furniture. She had a laptop open. Her hair was pulled back in a loose braid that looked like it had been done by someone else, and recently. She wore reading glasses. She looked up over them when he came in. "Mr. Turner." "Just Caleb is fine." "Caleb. Then please don't call me Ms. Whitmore. We've been over this." "Yes, Elena. Sorry. How long are you staying?" He hesitated. "How long do you want me to stay?" "That isn't how this works." Her voice was crisp, but not cold. "The agreement was that you decide. I'm the door. You're the knock." Right. 10 minutes then. I have a leak on the 42nd floor at 11. 10 minutes is fine." He sat down. There was already a chair pulled up across from her desk. He didn't ask who had put it there. He didn't need to. He could feel Evelyn's quiet hand in everything that happened in this apartment. The silence sat between them for 30 seconds, 40, a minute. "You don't have to talk," Elena said, eyes still on her screen. "I want you to understand that. You really don't." "Okay. Some people fill silence because they think it's kind. I don't need that. I've had 6 months of people filling silence at me. It doesn't help." "Got it. Good." She typed for another minute. He sat. He watched a pigeon on the window ledge outside. He noticed that his shoulders were up around his ears and made himself drop them. "What are you working on?" he asked before he could stop himself. She didn't look up. "An email to my chief operating officer informing him that I will be returning to active duties in a limited capacity beginning the 1st of next month." "Are you?" "I haven't decided, but the email exists now. Sometimes you have to write the thing before you know if you mean it." He thought about that. He thought about all the texts he had drafted to Marie's mother in the months after the funeral, the ones he had never sent. "Yeah," he said. "I get that." She glanced up at him over her glasses, just for a second, then back down. "Your daughter." "At the daycare. They're doing, I think she said something about a parade. Wednesdays they do a fish parade. They march around the koi tank in the lobby with paper crowns." "How do you know that?" "I own the building." "Right." "And I asked." He looked at her then. She didn't look up. He let the moment pass. After 8 minutes, he stood. He set his hand on the back of the chair. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Caleb?" "Yeah." "Thank you for coming." He didn't know what to say to that. He nodded once and let himself out. Tuesday she said go away. He went. Wednesday she said come in but didn't speak to him for the entire 10 minutes. He sat. He watched the pigeon. He left. Thursday, she said come in and asked him about his daughter. What's she like? Sophie. Sophie. He thought about it. She's stubborn. She's funny. She has a thing where if she doesn't know what to say, she just says the most honest thing she can think of, like a tiny, terrifying lawyer. She loves dinosaurs, but only the herbivores because she says the meat-eaters are mean. She picks flowers from people's window boxes on the way to school, and I have to keep telling her that's stealing, and she keeps telling me they were going to die anyway, so it's a rescue. Elena laughed. It was a small, dry sound, like a door opening that hadn't been opened in a long time. But it was a laugh. She put her hand to her mouth as if she were surprised by it. He saw her do it. She sounds like a force of nature. She is. Her mother was the same way. Marie. Yeah. Tell me about her. He looked at her for a long moment. He hadn't told anyone about Marie in a long time. His mother sometimes. His sister-in-law on the holidays. His own father once drunk 3 Christmases ago. That was it. That was the whole list. You sure? Only if you want to. I'm not asking as a trade. You don't have to give me a piece of you to be in this room. I know. Then only if you want to. He sat back in the chair. He looked at his hands. He took a breath. Marie was a 3rd-grade teacher at a public school in Queens. She had a thing about kids who got left behind, not the troublemakers, the quiet ones, the ones nobody noticed. She'd come home and tell me about them. Marcus, who didn't talk for the first 3 weeks of school. Aaliyah, whose father was deported in October. She remembered every single name. She kept lists of birthdays in a notebook, and she'd buy them little things, pencils, erasers, a $5 book out of our grocery money. Every single one of them every year. I used to give her hell about it. The grocery money. Marie, we don't have it this month. And she'd say, Caleb, they don't have it any month. And that was it. That was the whole conversation. Every time. He looked up. Elena was watching him. Her face was very still. She had a stroke in our kitchen on a Tuesday morning. She was 31. There was no warning, no history, nothing. The autopsy said a clot from a tiny defect she'd had since she was a baby and nobody ever found. She was making toast. Sophie was in the high chair. Sophie called 911 because Marie had taught her when she was 1 how to call 911. By the time I got there, she was gone. She'd been gone for 40 minutes. They let me sit with her. In the kitchen. Before they took her. I sat on the kitchen floor for I don't know how long. Sophie was asleep in her playpen. She slept through all of it. He stopped. He realized his hands were shaking. He flattened them against his knees. Sorry. Don't apologize. I don't usually. Caleb, don't apologize. He nodded. He couldn't look at her. After a long moment, she said very quietly, Thank you for telling me. Yeah. She sounds like a person worth knowing. She was. And you sound like a person who knew her well. He let out a breath that was half a laugh and half something else. I don't know about that. I do. He looked at her then. She was still watching him. Her eyes were wet. She didn't try to hide it. Caleb, can I tell you something? Yeah. My mother died when I was 11. Cancer. My father remarried within a year. By the time I was 13, I had decided that I would never let another person leave me again. By the time I was 25, I had built a company that meant I never needed another person, period. I got very good at it. I am extraordinarily good at it. And then 6 months ago, I drove home from a charity gala, and a drunk kid in a Honda hit me at 60 miles an hour. And I lost the use of my legs, and I realized, lying in that hospital bed, that I had spent 30 years building a life in which there was no one to call. There were 97 people in my contacts who would have flown across the world for a meeting. There was no one to bring me a sandwich. Elena. I'm not telling you for sympathy. I'm telling you because when your daughter walked in here last Tuesday, With that piece of toast, I think part of what broke me was that she was the first person in 11 weeks who showed up for me without an agenda, without a contract, without a transactional reason. She just saw somebody who needed something, and she brought it. And it has been so long since anyone did that for me that I forgot it was a thing people did. He didn't know what to say. And then her father, she went on, came in here and told me about his dead wife as if I were a person worth telling. Not a CEO, not a paycheck, a person. And I don't know what to do with that, Caleb. I genuinely do not know what to do with that. I was much better at this when everyone was a transaction. Yeah. That's all you have to say. Yeah. She laughed again. A real one this time. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Your 10 minutes are up, Mr. Turner. They've been up for a while. I know. I have to go fix a garbage disposal. I know. He stood. He picked up his work belt from where he'd dropped it on the floor. He paused at the door. Elena. Yes. For what it's worth, you're not a transaction either. He left before she could answer. By the end of the second week, he had stopped counting minutes. He came at 10. Sometimes he stayed 20. Sometimes he stayed 40. Once on a Friday when Elena had had a bad night and her hands were shaking too badly to hold her coffee, he stayed for 2 hours and didn't say a word, just sat in the chair and read the newspaper and got up once to refill her cup with a straw in it, the way Evelyn had quietly shown him in the kitchen the day before. That Friday was the first day he saw her physical therapist. The man was small and ferocious, a Filipino guy in his 50s named Marcos, who looked like he could bench press a grand piano. He came at noon. Elena had pushed him back to noon, specifically Caleb had figured out, so that there would be a witness. She didn't say that. She didn't have to. Caleb could see it in the way she sat up straighter when Marcos walked in the way her jaw set, in the way her eyes flicked toward Caleb's chair, and away again. You staying? Marcos asked him, pulling a mat out of a duffel. Caleb looked at Elena. He's staying, she said. All right. Mr. Turner, you're going to see some things in the next 45 minutes that aren't pretty. She's going to cry. She's going to swear. She's going to tell me to get out of her apartment. She's going to tell you to get out of her apartment. None of it is personal. None of it counts. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Good man. Marcos started with her hands. Just her hands. He had her squeeze a soft ball, 10 reps, 15-20. The left hand failed at 6. She made a sound in her throat that was equal parts rage and grief. Again, Marcos said. I can't. You can. 6 more. Marcos. I can't. 5 more. She closed her eyes. She squeezed. Her hand opened. The ball dropped. Pick it up. I can't pick it up. That's why I'm doing this stupid exercise. I cannot pick it up. Try. She tried. Her fingers fluttered. The ball moved an inch. Her face crumpled. She turned her head away from both of them. Caleb didn't move. He watched her, and he didn't move, and he didn't say anything. And after 20 seconds, she opened her eyes and reached for the ball again with a kind of fury he had never seen on a human face. And she got it, and she squeezed it, and she dropped it, and she got it again, and she squeezed it, and she dropped it, and she got it again. 5, Marcos said softly. That's 5. Beautiful. Beautiful, Elena. Take a breath. She was crying. She didn't make a sound. The tears just fell. Caleb realized his own hands were clenched in fists in his lap. He made himself unclench them. When the session was over and Marcos had packed up and gone, Elena lay back in the wheelchair with her eyes closed and didn't speak for a long time. Caleb sat in the chair across from her. Finally, she said without opening her eyes, You can go now. I imagine that wasn't pleasant. I'm not going. Caleb? I'm not going, Elena. A pause. Why? Because that was the bravest thing I've ever seen anybody do, and I'm not leaving you alone with what it cost you. You can throw something at me if you want. I'll stay anyway. She let out a long, shaky breath. I don't have anything to throw. That's lucky for both of us. She laughed, a small, wet laugh. Caleb? Yeah. My left hand worked yesterday, just yesterday. It worked enough to hold a coffee cup, and today it didn't. Do you know what that's like? Do you know what it's like to wake up every morning not knowing which version of your body you're going to get? I don't, Elena. I don't know what that's like. It is the cruelest thing I have ever experienced, and I have experienced cruel things. I believe you. And the worst part? The worst part is that I don't get to be angry at anyone. There is no one to be angry at. The drunk kid is in prison. My doctors are doing their jobs. My body it's just doing what bodies do. And I have nowhere to put it. So I throw it at the help. You haven't thrown anything in 2 weeks. I know. That's something. Is it? Yeah, it is. A long silence. Caleb. Yeah. Will you be here tomorrow? I'll be here tomorrow. Promise me. He paused. He thought about it. I promise you, Elena. I'll be here tomorrow. She nodded, eyes still closed. A single tear slid down her temple into her hair. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Teg. That night, he sat at his kitchen table again and again. He didn't sleep, but it was a different kind of not sleeping. This time he was looking at a photograph, It was one of the only ones he kept out, a small framed picture on the kitchen counter of Marie, holding 2-year-old Sophie at a pumpkin patch, both of them laughing. Sophie's hand buried in Marie's hair. He had not picked it up in a long time. He picked it up now. He looked at his wife's face. He ran his thumb across the glass over her cheek, the way he used to run it across her actual cheek when she fell asleep on the couch grading papers. I don't know what I'm doing, baby, he said quietly. I don't know what I'm doing. Marie didn't answer. Marie hadn't answered in 3 years. But for the first time in those 3 years, he had the strangest feeling, sitting alone in the dim kitchen, holding a 5-year-old picture, a city humming outside his window, that maybe somehow she didn't need to. That maybe she already knew. That maybe she was the one somewhere who had pushed him into that elevator on a Tuesday morning with his daughter holding his hand and his toolbox over his shoulder, and absolutely no idea what was waiting for him on the 62nd floor. He set the photograph back on the counter. He kissed his fingers and pressed them to the glass. Okay, Marie, he whispered. Okay. He went to bed. For the first time in 3 years, he slept all the way through the night. 3 weeks in the storm finally came. Caleb should have seen it coming. Looking back later, he would tell himself that he should have seen it coming, the way you see a dark sky on the horizon and know the rain is an hour out. Elena had had 4 good days in a row. She had eaten 3 meals a day. She had let Marcos work her arms and her core. She had taken a phone call from her chief operating officer and used the word Monday like it was a real day on a real calendar she was planning to be present for. On Tuesday, she had even let Sophie come up after the fish parade, and the two of them had spent 40 minutes drawing pictures of dinosaurs on the back of an interoffice memo. Sophie informing Elena very seriously that the Brontosaurus was a vegetarian, and therefore the nicest one. 4 good days. Caleb should have known. He walked in Wednesday morning at 10, and Elena was back in bed. The curtains were drawn. The laptop was closed. Evelyn was standing in the hallway outside the bedroom with red eyes and her clipboard pressed flat against her chest, like she was trying to keep her ribs from opening up. What happened? Caleb said. I don't know. She woke up like this. Her hand, both hands this morning, and her right leg there was some sensation last week, a little. She'd been so excited it's gone. The doctor was here at 7. He says it's not unusual. He says it's the way these injuries go. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. He was very calm about it. And Evelyn's chin trembled. She told him to get out and never come back. She told me to call her lawyer and revoke his hospital privileges. Caleb, she hasn't said a word in 2 hours. She just stares at the ceiling. I don't know what to do. He set down his work belt on the foyer floor. He looked at the closed bedroom door. Where's Sophie? At the daycare, the Wednesday parade. Good, keep her there. Whatever happens in the next hour, don't let her come up. I don't care what she says. Caleb. I mean it, Evelyn. Not today. He knocked on the door. He didn't wait for an answer. I told you to leave. Her voice was the voice from the first day, the pitcher voice, the one he hadn't heard in 3 weeks. He pushed open the door. She was lying flat on her back in the middle of the enormous bed, fully dressed, eyes on the ceiling. Her face was dry. That was the thing that scared him. There were no tears. There was nothing. There was a woman who had decided sometime between sunrise and breakfast that none of this was worth it anymore. Get out, Caleb. No. I'm not asking. I know you're not. I will have you removed from this building. I will have your contract terminated. I will have your supervisor on the phone in 3 minutes. Okay. I am not in the mood for this. I know you're not. He pulled the chair over to the bed. He sat down. Get out. I'm not getting out, Elena. She turned her head and looked at him, and the look on her face was the look of a wounded animal that has decided finally that the only thing left to do is bite. You think you know me. You don't know me. You think because I cried on a piece of toast 3 weeks ago that I'm some project you can fix. You're not fixing anything. You're a handyman. You unclog drains. You don't get to sit in my bedroom and decide. I'm not deciding anything. I'm sitting in a chair. Get out of my house. No. Get out of my house. She came up off the pillow with a sound that was half a scream and half a sob, and her good hand flew toward the lamp on the bedside table, and Caleb didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just looked at her. She stopped. Her hand was on the lamp. Her hand was shaking. She didn't pick it up. She put her hand back down. I gave you my word, she whispered. Her voice broke on the 3rd syllable. I gave you my word. I know you did. You didn't. That's what matters. She covered her face with her good hand. The other one lay limp at her side. Her shoulders started shaking. The sounds that came out of her were not the quiet weeping of a few weeks ago. These were ugly. These were the sounds of something tearing. I can't do it, she said. I cannot do it. I cannot get up tomorrow and do it again. I cannot, Caleb. I had 4 days. I had 4 good days. I worked for those 4 days. I bled for those 4 days. And I wake up this morning and my hand is gone again, and my leg is gone again, and it's like they were never there. Like the work was a lie. Like my body is laughing at me. I cannot do this. I cannot. Elena. Don't. Elena, listen to me. Don't. He waited. He let her cry. He didn't say a word. He didn't reach for her. He didn't move. He sat in the chair, and he was a knock on a door, and the door was wide open now, and there was a woman drowning on the other side of it, and the only thing he knew to do, the only thing in the entire world he knew to do, was not look away. After a long time, she said very quietly into her hand, I'm so tired. I know. I am so tired, Caleb. I know. You don't know. You don't know what it's like to wake up every day and not own your own body, not be able to trust a single thing about yourself. I used to run 6 miles before breakfast. I used to fly to London for a meeting and back the same day. I used to dance. I used to dance, Caleb. I used to be good at it. My mother taught me when I was little. And now I cannot lift my left foot off this bed. I cannot lift it half an inch. And I am supposed to. I am supposed to be grateful for the fact that yesterday I could squeeze a foam ball 6 times. 6 times, like a child. Yeah. That's all you have to say. Yeah, because you're right. I don't know. I don't have any idea what that's like, Elena. Nobody who hasn't lived it has any idea, and I'm not going to insult you by pretending I do. She lowered her hand. She looked at him. Then why are you still in this chair? He took a breath. He held it. He let it out. Because 3 years ago, I sat on a kitchen floor next to my dead wife for 4 hours, and there was nobody in that chair for me. There was nobody, Elena. The paramedics came and went. The medical examiner came and went. My mother got there eventually, but she was destroyed. She couldn't even stand up. And I sat on that floor with Marie's hand in mine, and I waited for somebody to come and tell me what to do next, and nobody did. Nobody. For 4 hours. And I made myself a promise that day that if I ever saw someone sitting on a floor like that, I would sit down with them. I wouldn't fix it. I wouldn't talk. I would just sit, because that's what I needed, and nobody knew to do it. His own voice was rough now. He didn't try to smooth it. "You're on a floor right now, Elena. I can see you. I'm not going anywhere." She looked at him for a long time. "I almost threw a lamp at you." "I know. You didn't move." "I know. Why didn't you move?" "Because if you had thrown it, you would have hated yourself for the rest of your life, and I wasn't going to let that be the last thing that happened in this room today." A sound came out of her that wasn't a laugh and wasn't a sob. It was both at once. "You idiot! You could have been hit." "I had faith in you." "Faith in what? I'm a monster on a Wednesday." "You're a person who's hurting on a Wednesday. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yeah, there is." She closed her eyes. A long silence. "Caleb?" "Yeah, I want to tell you something I have never told anyone. And I want you to promise me you will not say anything kind about it. You will not try to make it better. You will just hear it and let it sit in the room. Can you do that?" "I can do that." She opened her eyes. They were dry now. She was looking at the ceiling again. The night of the accident. After they pulled me out of the car. Before the ambulance got there. I was on the asphalt. I couldn't move. I knew before any of them said a word that something was very wrong. I couldn't feel my legs, and I couldn't move my arms, and I was looking up at the sky, and the ambulance was, I could hear it. I could hear the siren, but it was still a long way off. And in that moment, lying on the West Side Highway looking up at the sky, I had a thought. She paused. He waited. I thought, good. Maybe I won't make it. Maybe this is over. And the relief I felt, Caleb. The relief. That is the thing I have not been able to tell anyone in 6 months. That for one whole minute on the asphalt, I was grateful that I was going to die. Because I was so tired of the life I had built. I was so tired of the woman I had become. I had every single thing a human being is supposed to want, and I was lying in the street hoping the ambulance would be slow. Elena. You said you wouldn't say anything kind. I'm not. I was just saying your name. Don't. Okay. A long, long silence. And then the ambulance got there, she said, and they saved me. And I have been so angry at them for 6 months, Caleb. I have been so angry at every single person who has tried to keep me alive because I was done. I had checked out. I had been given a clean exit, and they took it from me, and now I'm here. In this body, in this apartment, with this life I never asked them to save. He didn't speak. And then your daughter walked in here 3 weeks ago with a piece of toast. He waited, and I... Caleb. I sat there looking at this 5-year-old child, and I thought about what would have happened if the ambulance had been a little slower, and I thought about her growing up in a world where I died on the highway, and she never met me. And I thought for the first time in 6 months, I thought maybe I'm glad they got there in time. For 1 second, for one tiny second, I thought maybe. And it has been the most terrifying thought I have had since the accident. Because if I am glad to be alive even for 1 second, then all this work, all this hurt, all these stupid foam balls, all of it is something I'm choosing. And I don't know how to choose it on a Wednesday when my left hand doesn't work. She turned her head and looked at him. How do you choose it, Caleb? After Marie. How do you wake up and choose it? He sat very still. I don't most days. I just wake up because Sophie's awake, because she needs cereal, because she needs her hair braided, because she has a thing at school. I don't choose. I move because there's a small person who needs me to move. And then somewhere around lunch I notice I've been moving for 5 hours, and I haven't thought about it. And then I cry in the truck on the way to a job, and then I move some more. That's not choosing. No, it's not. Choosing is harder. I haven't gotten to choosing yet. I might not for a long time. How long has it been? 3 years and 4 months. And you still haven't chosen? Not really, no. Then what are you doing, Caleb? What are you doing? He thought about it. He thought about it for a long time. I think I'm just trying not to disappear. Marie used to say that. About people who lose somebody. She said the danger isn't dying, the danger is disappearing. You wake up one day and you realize you haven't been a person in a year. You've just been a function. A dad or a worker or a guy who pays the bills. And the you of you is gone. She used to say that about her grandfather after her grandmother died. She said he disappeared a year before he actually died. And are you? Disappearing? Yeah, I think I have been. I think I've been disappearing for 3 years. And now? He looked at her. And now I think I'm coming back a little. I don't know why, I don't know how. But I sat in this room 2 weeks ago and watched you squeeze a foam ball 6 times, and I felt something in my chest that I haven't felt in 3 years, and I went home and I slept, Elena. I slept all the way through the night, for the first time. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what it means. But it happened. And I think it has something to do with sitting in this chair. She was crying again, quietly now. The good kind of crying. The kind that didn't tear. Caleb? Yeah. I want you to do something for me. Yeah. I want you to keep coming, even on Wednesdays. Even when I'm a monster. I want you to promise me. I know it's not fair. I know I have no right. But I'm asking. I am asking because I do not have anyone else to ask, and because I am afraid that if you stop coming, I will go back to being the woman who hoped the ambulance was slow. And I do not want to be that woman anymore. I do not want to be that woman. Elena, I'll keep coming. Promise me. I promise you. On Sophie. Promise me on Sophie. He paused. I promise you on Sophie. She nodded. She closed her eyes. Her good hand reached out slow, uncertain, and stopped halfway across the bed. It hovered there. He understood. He reached out and took her hand. It was the first time he had touched her. Her hand was thin. The fingers didn't grip back the way they should have. He held it carefully, like something that might break. Thank you, she whispered. You're welcome. For staying. You're welcome. For not throwing me away when I was throwing myself away. He didn't answer. He just held her hand. After a while, she said with her eyes still closed, Caleb, will you do me one more thing? Yeah. Will you tell Marcos to come back this afternoon? I don't want to. I don't want to do it. But I want you to tell him for me. Because if I tell him myself, I'll find a reason to cancel, and if you tell him, I'll have to do it. Will you tell him? I'll tell him. And will you stay for the session? I'll stay for the session. Even though I'll be horrible. Even though you'll be horrible. Okay? Okay. He stayed in that chair for another 40 minutes. He didn't let go of her hand. At some point she fell asleep. Not the dead, ceiling-staring sleep of the morning, but real sleep, ragged and exhausted and human. He waited until her breathing slowed. Then, he very gently set her hand back down on the blanket. In the foyer, Evelyn was waiting. She looked at his face. She didn't ask. He didn't tell her. Tell Marcos 2 o'clock, he said. I'll be there. Okay? And Evelyn. Yes. When Sophie comes up after the parade, let her bring up a drawing. Just one. Slip it under the door. Don't let her come in. Just the drawing. Evelyn nodded. She was crying. Okay. Thank you. He picked up his work belt off the foyer floor, and he walked out of that apartment and down the hall toward the elevator, and somewhere between the bedroom door and the lobby, he realized that his face was wet too, and had been for a while. He got in the elevator. The doors closed. He looked at himself in the mirrored panel. For 1 second he saw a man he hadn't seen in 3 years. Then the doors opened on the lobby, and a small voice yelled, "Daddy!" And Sophie came running across the marble with a paper crown on her head, and a fish-shaped cracker in each hand. And he dropped down on one knee, and caught her, and held her, and held her. and didn't let go for a long time. The drawing Sophie slid under the door that afternoon was a stick figure of a woman in a wheelchair holding hands with a stick figure of a little girl. Above them in shaky purple crayon were the words, "You are my friend." Elena kept it on the bedside table where she could see it. She would later have it framed, but that was getting ahead of things, and there were still 10 weeks of work to get through before the framing. 10 weeks of mornings, where Marco showed up at noon, and Caleb sat in the chair, and Elena did things she had said on a Wednesday in early March that she could not do. 10 weeks of foam balls and parallel bars, and the small, brutal mathematics of recovery. 6 reps becoming 8, 8 becoming 12. The left hand learning slowly, painfully to hold a coffee cup again. Then a pen. Then a child's small, sticky fingers. When Sophie slipped her hand into Elena's during a Friday afternoon visit, and Elena, for the first time in 6.5 months, squeezed back. She cried that night, not the bad crying, the other kind. By the end of April, she was standing. It wasn't walking. Marcos was very clear with her that it might never be walking, that what they were aiming for was something the doctors called functional ambulation, the ability to transfer, to stand for short periods, to take supported steps with a walker, to live in a body that worked, even if it didn't run anymore. Elena had not taken this news well. There had been a bad afternoon. There had been words exchanged. Caleb had sat in the chair through that one too, and at the end of it, Elena had looked at him with red eyes and said, "I used to dance, Caleb. I know. I'm never going to dance again." "Maybe not the way you used to." "Don't." "Elena, listen to me. You are alive. Your daughter, your fish. Gerald, your fish. Your fish is alive, and you have somebody to come and feed him. You have a brother you haven't talked to in 4 years, and Evelyn told me yesterday you called him. Did you?" She didn't answer. "Did you?" "I called him." "What did he say?" "He cried." "There you go. That's not dancing, Caleb." "No, it's not. But it's something. And maybe the new dancing is maybe it's standing up at your brother's daughter's wedding. Maybe it's holding on to a walker and walking 10 feet across a room because there's somebody at the other end you want to get to. Maybe dancing isn't the point. Maybe getting to the person on the other side of the room is the point, and maybe you've been confused about that your whole life." She had stared at him for a long time. That was a very long speech for a maintenance technician. "I've been thinking about it. It shows." But she had laughed when she said it, and the next morning she had asked Marcos to set up the parallel bars. In the second week of May, Elena Whitmore went back to her office for the first time in 9 months. She did not walk in. She rolled in a wheelchair that she had personally selected in a charcoal suit that had been retailored to fit her, sitting down with Evelyn on her left and a physical therapist on her right. The lobby of Whitmore Holdings' 60 floors of glass and steel that bore her name went absolutely silent when she came through the revolving door. 900 employees were in that building. By noon, every single one of them knew she was back. She rolled into the boardroom. There were 14 men and 3 women around the table. Most of them had been preparing for 9 months to manage her decline. Several of them had been preparing for 9 months to replace her. She knew exactly who. She had a list. She did not use the list. She sat at the head of the table. They had removed a chair to make room for her, and she looked around at every single face, and when she spoke, her voice was the voice of the woman they remembered, but quieter. Not weaker. Quieter. "Good morning." "Good morning, Ms. Whitmore. I'd like to begin by saying thank you to this company, to the people in this building, to all of you, for keeping the lights on while I was away. I owe you my professional life. I do not say that lightly, and I will not forget it." A long silence. "I'd also like to say that the woman who left this room 10 months ago is not the woman who has come back to it. I am physically less than I was. I have come to terms with that. What I have not come to terms with, what I refuse to come to terms with, is the kind of CEO I was for the last decade of this company's history. I was effective. I was profitable. I was by most measures excellent. But I was also, and I am going to say this, only once a person who valued no one in this room as a person, including myself, especially myself. You could hear a pen drop on that table. That is going to change, starting today. I am not turning this into a nonprofit. I am not going soft. We are going to continue to be the most profitable real estate firm on the Eastern Seaboard, and we are going to continue to be the best at what we do. But we are going to do it as human beings who go home to other human beings at the end of the day. The first person who tells me a story this year about working through their child's birthday because of a deadline I set is going to find me very, very unpleasant. Are we clear? Heads nodded. Good. Stephen, you're going to brief me on the Tribeca development. Monica, you're going to walk me through the second quarter projections. We have 90 minutes. Let's begin. That night, Caleb was in his apartment in Astoria, putting together a Lego dinosaur with Sophie on the living room rug when his phone rang. It was a number he didn't have saved, but he knew it. Hello? Caleb? It's me? Hey, how'd it go? There was a pause on the other end. He heard her breathing. He heard the city outside her window 62 floors up. I think I might still be a CEO. Yeah? I think I might be a slightly better one. That doesn't surprise me at all. A small, broken laugh. Caleb, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think about it, and I want you to feel free to say no. Okay. Okay. I would like to keep you on, permanently, as I don't know what to call it. Building manager, operations supervisor, director of facilities for Whitmore Holdings. Pick a title. I don't care. The pay is real money, Caleb, not maintenance technician money. Real money. The kind of money that means Sophie can go to college without you working 3 jobs. The kind of money that means you can take a Saturday off. He didn't answer right away. I'm not Caleb, listen. I'm not offering this because of any of it. I am offering it because I have watched you for 10 weeks fix every problem in that building before anyone else even knew there was a problem. You are extraordinary at your job. You are frankly wasted at your current pay grade, and I would have noticed it months ago if I had been a person who noticed people. I am noticing it now. I want you on my team. The position would exist whether you and I had ever met. I want that to be clear, Elena. Yes? You don't have to dress it up. I know I don't. I'm dressing it up because I am terrified you'll say no, and I am protecting myself. He laughed. He couldn't help it. Sophie looked up from the Lego dinosaur. Daddy, who is it? It's the lady baby. The not sad lady. Yeah, sweetheart. The not sad lady. Tell her I say hi. Sophie says hi. Tell her hi back. She says hi back, baby. Go work on the dinosaur. He stood up and walked into the kitchen. Elena. Yes. I have to think about it. Of course. Not because I don't want it, because it's a big change, and I have to make sure it's right for Sophie, her routines, her school, her everything. I'm not going to make a decision in one night that affects her whole life. That's exactly why I want to hire you. He smiled. He didn't know why. I'll have an answer by Friday. Friday is fine. A pause. Caleb? Yeah. Thank you. You said that already. I'm going to keep saying it for a while. Probably forever. You're going to have to get used to it. Okay. Good night, Caleb. Good night, Elena. He hung up. He stood in his small kitchen and looked at the photograph on the counter. Marie holding 2-year-old Sophie. Marie laughing. What do you think, baby? He whispered. Marie didn't answer. But the kitchen was quiet, and his daughter was on the rug behind him, singing under her breath about a brontosaurus, and he had the feeling for the second time in his life that the answer was already obvious if he was brave enough to hear it. Toin. He took the job on Friday. Sophie's daycare became permanent. The drawings on Elena's wall multiplied. By the time summer came, there were 11 of them, and Elena had begun on the better afternoons to make her way into the lobby at 3 o'clock, so she could be there when Sophie came down from the daycare, and the two of them would sit by the koi tank and have a serious conversation about Gerald's emotional state. Caleb would walk past and pretend not to look. He always looked. In June, Elena took her first supported steps in front of him. He had not been invited. Marcos had called him on his radio and said, "Caleb, your office. 5 minutes." And Caleb had come up expecting a leak, expecting a pipe, and had walked into the apartment to find Elena standing at the parallel bars in the converted living room that had become her therapy space. Her hands were white-knuckled on the rails. Her face was wet. She was looking at the doorway. She had been waiting for him. "Walk to me," he said before he knew he was going to say it. "Caleb. 5 steps. You can do 5. Walk to me." "My legs." "I know about your legs. Walk to me, Elena." She did. 5 steps. Slow, agonizing, the kind of steps that would never look like much in a video, but that meant everything in that room. On the 5th step, she let go of the rail, and she fell into him, and he caught her, and he held her up, and Marcos was crying, and Evelyn was crying in the doorway, and Elena was laughing into his shoulder, actually laughing the laugh of a woman who had not laughed like that in a year, and saying over and over, "I did it, I did it, I did it. You did it. I walked Caleb. You walked. I walked to you. Yeah, you did." He held her until Marcos came over with the wheelchair, and they got her sitting again. She wouldn't let go of his hand for another full minute. He let her hold it. He didn't say anything. Later, after Marcos had packed up and Evelyn had gone to her own apartment downstairs, Elena and Caleb sat in the living room in the late afternoon light with cups of tea, and she said quietly, "Caleb, can I tell you something?" "Yeah, I am never going to be the person I was." "I know. And I am okay with that, I think. Most days, I think I might actually be okay with that." "Yeah, and Caleb, I want to say this carefully because I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to make it more than it is. I don't want to put a name on it that isn't right. But I want you to know that you are you and Sophie. You are the family I did not know I was allowed to have. I am not asking for anything. I am not. I have no expectations. I know you loved Marie. I know you still love Marie. I know I am. I am not the second act of anyone's love story, and I don't want to be. But you are the people I think of when I wake up, and I wanted you to know." He looked at her for a long time. "Elena." "Yes. You don't have to be careful with me. I'm not breakable." "I know. And I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to let it land. I'm going to say it once, and then I'm not going to make a thing of it because I'm a guy from Queens and we don't do speeches. Okay. Okay." He set down his tea. He looked at her. "I came up here 10 months ago to fix a vent. 10 months. You asked me to be a knock on a door. That's all. A knock. And somewhere along the way, the door started opening before I knocked. And somewhere along the way, I started looking forward to 10 o'clock in the morning more than any other hour of my day. And somewhere along the way, Sophie started asking on Saturdays when she was going to see Miss Elena. We don't have anywhere to be on Saturdays, Elena. She doesn't ask about anybody else. She asks about you." Elena's eyes filled. "And I don't know what we are. I don't know what to call it. I don't think I want to call it anything yet. But I know I'm not going anywhere. I know my daughter has decided you are her person, and her instincts on people are better than mine ever were. I know I have not slept on a kitchen floor in 9 months. I know I came up here a man who was disappearing, and somewhere between the foam balls and the parallel bars I came back. So whatever this is, you don't have to be careful with it. You don't have to apologize for it. You don't have to make it less than it is. We're a family. Whatever shape that is, we're a family." She was crying. He reached over and took her hand. "And for the record," he said, "I do still love Marie. I'm always going to love Marie. That doesn't take anything away from this. That's not how love works. Love isn't a pie that runs out of slices. Marie taught me that, actually. She used to say it about her students. There's always more. I have to believe she'd want me to find out if she was right. I think she'd want you to. Yeah. Caleb. Yeah. Thank you for staying. He smiled. It was a tired, happy, used-up kind of smile. You said that already. I'm going to keep saying it. Yeah, he said softly. Yeah, I know. 2 years later, on a sunny Saturday in late September, Elena Whitmore stood with a cane in her right hand and her left hand on Caleb Turner's arm at the back of a small reception hall in Brooklyn and watched her brother dance with his daughter at the daughter's wedding. She had walked down the aisle on Caleb's arm, 15 feet slow and steady, and the entire room had stood. Her brother had cried. She had not. She had been saving it. Sophie, now 7, was on the dance floor with 2 cousins, her hair in elaborate braids that Caleb had spent 45 minutes on that morning. She was wearing a dress Elena had picked out. She was by any measure the happiest 7-year-old in New York City. Elena, Caleb said quietly. You okay? I want to dance. He looked at her. Elena. One song, with you. Holding me up. I don't care how it looks. I want to dance. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. He walked her out onto the floor. He took her cane and handed it to Evelyn, who was standing at the edge with Sophie now beside her, watching with her hands clapped over her mouth. He put his arms around Elena. She put her arms around his neck. Her legs would not hold all her weight. He held the rest. They didn't really dance. They swayed. For 3.5 minutes in the middle of a wedding, with a 7-year-old girl watching from the edge of the floor with tears in her eyes and a fish-shaped cracker in her hand, Elena Whitmore swayed in the arms of the maintenance technician who had walked into her bedroom on a Tuesday morning to fix a vent and had ended up by accident, by grace, by the quiet stubbornness of a man who refused to leave a person on the floor, saving her life. When the song ended, she pulled back and she looked at him and she smiled. Caleb? Yeah. I danced. You danced. To you. Yeah, he said. You did. And in a wedding hall in Brooklyn on a sunny afternoon 2 years and 3 months after a 5-year-old girl carried a piece of toast across a marble floor, 3 people who had each in their own way been disappearing found in each other the one thing that none of them could have bought or earned or commanded into existence. They found someone who stayed. And that in the end is the whole story. Not the billions, not the accident, not the wheelchair or the parallel bars or the boardroom. The whole story is this: a woman who pushed the world away, a man who refused to leave, and a child who knew before any of the adults did that the only thing a hurting person ever really needs is for somebody, anybody, to walk into the room and not walk back out. That is what saved Elena Whitmore. That is what saved Caleb Turner. That is what they gave each other and what they gave Sophie, and what Sophie, without ever knowing it, had given them first. They stayed. And because they stayed, they lived.